ओम पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते. So welcome to our Saturday morning session. We shall continue on our spiritual journey of the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18. We will start today from verse number 17 onwards. Now, last time we saw that there are 5 instruments which we use to perform any karma. Those instruments were adhishtan, that is karta. Then you had karan, those are instruments of senses, like 10 senses, 5 action and 5 perception. And then the effort which we make and the divine power which comes into play. So these are the 5 you can say instruments which we use, or 5. In Sanskrit they are called hetu. Now I do not know what could be the most appropriate English word, but these are the 5 uh, methods or 5 uh, instruments which we use to perform a karma. And then Lord Krishna said that we perform our karma in 3 ways, that is man, vani and sarir. These are the 3 methods through which we perform our karma, our duties or our action. Now, after that, he said that those people who actually feel that they are the doer and they consider their soul as the doer, they are actually ajnani. They do not understand what they are doing. So that is where we ended with verse number 16. Now we will have verse number 17 today. जिस पुरुष के अंतःकरण में मैं करता हूं ऐसा भाव नहीं है, जिसकी बुद्धि सांसारिक पदार्थों में और कर्मों में लिपायमान नहीं होती है, वह पुरुष इन सब लोगों को मारकर भी वास्तव में न मारता है और न पाप से बंधता है. Now this is a very profound statement which is actually based on what he said in chapter 2 in the very beginning. He says that those who feel that I am not the doer, that I am not doer, I've been sent here and performing my duties. Like I am one of the small little instrument in this whole universe, this vast entity, and I have been sent here to do my job and I am doing my job. That's it. I am not the doer. I do not decide the destiny of the universe. And then जिसकी बुद्धि सांसारिक पदार्थों में और कर्मों में लिपायमान नहीं होती, then he doesn't get attached to the worldly, either the actions or their outcomes. Neither the mind nor the intellect is attached to the action or the outcome of the action. Then that person, whatever he performs, he is actually not bound by those actions. And then he is referring to the dilemma of Arjun, saying that even if you kill all the people in that kind of a state, then you are not killing anybody and you are not taking any consequences of those killings. Though that is not even a killing according to Lord Krishna. So what is needed? That I am not the doer, I am just an instrument here. I have been sent by the Supreme, by the all-powerful, Almighty. Here in this world, I have been put into this position. I perform my duties. I have no attachment either to the duty or to the consequences of the duty. then you are absolutely liberated. Your liberation is not doubtful in that state. Now, it looks easy, but it is not easy because we remain all the time mentally and intellectually attached either to the actions we are doing or to the outcome of those actions. We keep worrying about those, and that is where the problem arises. Now, this problem will be discussed in a very subtle way in the following verses, and we will go into those verses in some detail. They will give us the way out, how to come out of this problem that I'm the doer or I'm attached to the karma, I'm attached to the outcome of the karma, how to get out of it. That analysis will now follow. Number 18, ज्ञाता ज्ञान और ज्ञेय, ये तीन प्रकार की कर्म प्रेरणा है, और कर्ता करण तथा क्रिया ये तीन प्रकार के कर्म संग्रह हैं. Now the analysis, the scientific analysis of the entire process of karma continues one after another. This is another explanation of karma, how we perform. Now, Gyata. Gyata is the person who will benefit. Gyan is the knowledge. And Gay is the process of attaining that knowledge. Like, for example, at this moment, Gyan is the one which we are looking at from Bhagavad Gita, that is Gyan. The explanations which are coming out of the various slokas of Bhagavad Gita, that is Gyan. Gyata is, if we benefit out of this process, then we will become Gyata. But in between the Gyan and Gyata, there is a process which is going on. That process is called Gay, when we are able to understand that knowledge, that Gyan, which is coming out of the explanation of Bhagavad Gita. Then when it becomes Gay, then we become Gyata. So it starts with Gyan, then the process of Gay continues, and when the Gay is completed, then the person becomes Gyata. If the Gay is not completed, then the person does not become Gyata. Now, Gay is very important. Gay is a word which actually implies that everything it has dissolved into you. Like when you dissolve salt into the water, the salt and water become one. You cannot then take out the salt. Similarly, the knowledge becomes one with you. Then it Gay, and then you become Gyata. So these are the very, what you call, refined expressions of the happenings in our body system. In our body system, or when somebody is teaching you, or somebody is trying to explain to you what is knowledge, and when that knowledge goes down deep inside you, then you are able to digest that knowledge, then you become Gyata. So this is the what we call, he says, karma prerana hai. That is what the whole process of karma works that way. They give you the inspiration to perform the karma, because once you get the gyan dissolves into you, you become Gyata, and then you start performing the karma. So that is the prerana of the action comes from this process. Then karta, karan तथा kriya, ये तीन प्रकार कर्म का संग्रह है. Now, karta, if you believe that you are the doer, then naturally the karma get accumulated and you get the outcome. So sangrah means they are forming a seed in that case. Karan are those instruments which we are using, and kriya is the actual process. This kriya is different than the kriya which we explained earlier. Here this is linked with karta, karan and kriya. Karta is the doer. Karan is the like instruments, my senses, which I use, senses of perception and senses of action. And Kriya is that process which I am doing. For example, I speak, now that becomes a Kriya. I use the sense of speech and I am the doer. Then I am the doer, the sense of speech is being used, and the Kriya is that action which is happening out of it. So these are the three things that lead to karm sangrah. That is, you are accumulating the karm if you are, uh, accepting the role of karta in this case. That I am the doer, then it becomes karm sangrah. So this is what verse number 18 says. Now, actually, verse number 20 to 22 are very, very fundamental to the knowledge process. So now he starts from here. वर्स नंबर 19, गुणों के संख्या करने वाले शास्त्र में ज्ञान और कर्म तथा कर्ता गुणों के भेद से तीन तीन प्रकार के कहे गए हैं, उनको भी तू भली भांति सुन. नाउ ही इज रेफरिंग टू द सांख्य philosophy, and he's saying that in that philosophy the gyan, karma and karta, that is the knowledge, that action and the doer, these have been again categorized into three categories each. Like earlier we saw in chapter 17, Shraddha Traya Vibhag Yogo, that Shraddha is also divided into three categories: Satvik Shraddha, Rasic Shraddha, and Tamsik Shraddha. Similarly, even Gyan is divided into three categories. We presume that Gyan is normally something very great, but not necessarily. We can be driven by very, Tamsik Gyan as well. That is what Lord Krishna is going to explain in the next three verses. So let's first understand what can be the three versions of Gyan. Sometimes we are driven, we believe that I am very knowledgeable, I have all Gyan, but that Gyan is driven by what? That is very important. So this is a very eye-opener. If we can understand these three verses properly, I think our task is done. Then we don't have to look for anything else in Bhagavad Gita. Now verse number 20, that is Gyan. How do you explain the Gyan? Sattvic Gyan. जिस ज्ञान से मनुष्य पृथक पृथक सब भूतों में एक अविनाशी परमात्म भाव को विभाग रहित समभाव से स्थित देखता है, सर्वभूतेषु येनकम भावमव्य मीक्षते, उस ज्ञान को तू सात्विक ज्ञान मान. Now this is what we have to understand today in deep. जिस ज्ञान से मनुष्य पृथक पृथक सब भूतों में एक अविनाशी, that is अव्यय, अविभक्तम, विभाग रहित, संभाव से परमात्मा को देखता है, वह ज्ञान सात्विक ज्ञान. Now we all know variety of knowledge, but sattvic jnana, if we can understand the sattvic jnana, I think our task is done. The sattvic jnana tells you that we see this whole world, whole universe. There are so many different things here. There are billions of people, 8 billion humans. There are other species of life, billions of them. There are animals, there are birds, there are a marine life. You see plants, millions and billions and trillions. You even see mountains and river and all other physical features. So you see all this vast expanse on the earth alone. I am not talking about the universe. On the earth alone, which the earth is a very small little dot in this whole universe. It's not even equal to a small particle of matter on the earth. You take a very smallest particle of matter on the earth is even smaller than that in the whole universe. So even on this earth, you have so many things, so many manifestations we see. Now, if you are able to see in all this manifestation, what? सब भूतों में अविनाशी, that is eternal, ever existent, pure consciousness, vibhag rahit, that is, it is not divided. Though the whole universe, whole species of life, they look divided, but that consciousness is not divided. And sambhav, and it is present there in equanimity, in equal quantity everywhere. Now, if we are able to see that, then our knowledge is sattvic. Now, we have to understand it properly. Now, the power of consciousness is enormous. Our Shastras tell us that everything arises from consciousness, everything dissolves into consciousness. Now, it looks, easy to listen. We can, we can listen to it, but we don't really grasp it actually. When we see this whole world divided into billions and trillions of forms, it's not easy to believe that this is one single entity which is giving rise to all of them, and they all dissolve into one. Now, let's take some example in progressive way. The first example is that our body. We look so different. Each one is different. Even our fingertips are different. We can be recognized on the basis of our fingertips, tips, on the basis of our, iris of the eyes, all these biological factors which make us different. So the human being is so complicated, so different from each other. Still, when we die, all of us are dissolved into the same earth. We all become part of the earth. Our air goes into air. Whatever water is there in our body, it goes into water. The earth dissolves into earth. The energy dissolves into fire. And we become one. Though we are trillions of them separately, a cow is different, and a horse is different, and a sparrow is different, and a human being is different, and a fish is different. But when they die, what happens? They dissolve into the same five elements of life. The bodies are so different, but they go into the same. So it is very clear that they arise from the same, because from these five elements, the food comes into our body, and our body turns, starting from the mother's womb, where the food is fed by the mother, and the food turns into body. All different shapes come into existence. And when we die, all those shapes go back to the same five elements. And we have also seen how the five elements arise. So that is one example, that everything dissolve into one, and they arise from one. It's one example. Let's take another example. In the night when we dream, this world is dissolved. This world doesn't exist, which we see now. We call it Vaisnava Avastha, the waking state of life, in which we can touch and see and talk and feel. That world which we see and touch does not exist. It is dissolved already. And we, make a journey into a new world which we call dream world. There also thousands of things appear. There are hundreds of people, there are buildings, there are trees, there are animals, there are rivers, there are mountains. Everything is there in that world. And we are a player in that world. We see, we talk, we discuss, we even cry, we even laugh. We do many things. As we are doing right now, we are doing the same thing. But when we get up in the morning, we don't see that world at all. Where is that world? It's all dissolved. Where it arose from? It arose from your consciousness. Your consciousness gave birth to that whole universe which you created, which we call dream world. And that whole universe dissolved into you. So now you believe that the world can arise from me and dissolve into me. Me means the consciousness. The consciousness can give rise to multiple, multifaceted, forms of life, and then they dissolve into the same consciousness. Similarly, this whole universe arises from one single entity, and it dissolves into one single entity. That is what Lord Krishna is saying, that you should be able to see that entity which is imperishable, which is Shashwat, which is eternal, which is existing everywhere, which does not depreciate. If you are able to see that entity, which is the foundation of all these variations which you see in the world, then your knowledge is sattvic. Now let's take another example to understand this. Now our own world, we also have a different world. Each one of us has a different world. The world which we experience is different for everybody. It's not the same. Though we live in the same world, you may be living in the same house, but the world is not the same. The world is different. How your world arises? Your feeling of love for somebody arises from your own self, your inside. Your feeling of hatred for somebody else arises from inside. Your hunger arises from inside. Your knowledge, your, that I should do something good, I should do something bad, your spiritual knowledge, it springs from inside again. You may be listening a lot of things from outside, but ultimately springs from inside. The feeling that you should donate something to somebody else, you should help somebody else, it also arises from inside. Everything which you do in life, ultimately, what is the source of that inspiration? The source of that inspiration is your inner self. You may be listening to a lot of people, you may be reading a lot of things, but ultimate source on which your decision is based is your own self. So your own self is the final source of everything which you do in life. And therefore, your own self is the maker of your own world. The world which you create here, it arises from your own self, and that self is your consciousness. Because that consciousness provides force to your mind, your senses to operate. Without that consciousness, these forces will not operate. So that is the single source for everything which you perform in this world and which forms your world. Your world is formed of, we believe that we are living in this vast entity which is all around us. No, it may be existing all around you, but your world is formed because of the inspirations, because of the thought process, because of the reactions that arise from your own self. So, this is the third example, that everything which we experience in life, that experience comes from your own self. And that experience also dissolves into your own self. So, we must understand this process, then we will have the true knowledge, sattvic jnana, that the consciousness, whether it is universal or whether it is individual, It is the foundation of everything that we see, that we experience, that we feel in this universe. And that consciousness is indivisible, vibhag rahit, that is not divided. It's indivisible like this space, this akash all around us, where we can create a house, where we can create a toilet and a washroom and a go down and a theater. But this akash remains undivided completely. Similarly, this consciousness is undivided, whether we create a feeling of hatred or a feeling of love or a feeling of helping others or feeling of exploiting others, it doesn't matter. The consciousness is indivisible. This is what we have to. And it is avinashi, it is eternal. It doesn't get come to an end ever. It has no origin, it has no end. And somehow that it exists uniformly everywhere, like the Akash exists uniformly everywhere. So if we are able to understand this, then our knowledge is sattvic. And once we understand this verse 20, then we will not be able to do any wrong in life. That is not possible. Because once you feel that everything is Paramatma all around us is universal consciousness, which is Paramatma, then you can do nothing wrong. So, this is what we have to understand. And this is the source from where we have this Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, Ayam Nij Paroveti, Ganana Laghu Chetasam, Udar Charita Namatu Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. That those people who have higher thinking, for them this whole universe is one single entity because of this explanation in verse 20 here. If that feeling of universal brotherhood arises from this knowledge is the foundation for that feeling. So this is what is called sattvic knowledge. I hope I'm clear. Everything arises from this knowledge, from this consciousness. Everything dissolves into that consciousness. That consciousness is indivisible. It may appear to be divided in this universe in billions of trillions of forms, but it is not, because this is one single foundation of all that arises. Like ocean is the foundation of all the waves that arises. All the waves arise from the ocean, dissolve into ocean. Similarly, this universal consciousness is the foundation of all the manifestation we see in the world. And all that manifestation dissolve back into the same consciousness. Similarly, all the feelings, all the emotions which we have as an individual, forming our own world, they arise all from that consciousness which we have inside, in combination with the instruments of our body. And then that those all those feelings, all those sentiments, all those thought processes, they all dissolve back into the same consciousness. So this is what we have to understand, that consciousness is the fountainhead of everything that we see, all the manifestation, the different manifestation is only an expression of that consciousness, but there is one single thread which is there, which is pervading everything. That is what in Isa Vasya Upanishad also said, Isa Vasya Midam Sarvam Jagatyam Jagat, that everything is pervaded by Isa and his power in this universe. Similarly here, if we can feel that, then we have this true knowledge in our life. Now verse number 21. किंतु जो ज्ञान अर्थात जिस ज्ञान के द्वारा मनुष्य संपूर्ण भूतों में भिन्न भिन्न प्रकार के नाना भावों को अलग अलग जानता है, उस ज्ञान को तू राजस जान। नाउ when we see this universe, when we see billions of people around, if we consider them separate, each one is separate. If we consider each life form as separate, if we do not see the unity in all that, but we consider them as independent individual entities, then that knowledge is Rajasic knowledge. Now, this knowledge is the foundation of all the conflicts in the world we see, the Rajasic knowledge. Because this knowledge creates the feeling of I and you. This is me, this is you, this is he. So the differentiation between me and you and her is because of this knowledge, because I see them separate entities completely without any thread unifying them. Now, that is the biggest issue we have. And because of that feeling of I and you, all the conflicts arise. That my religion is better than your, I am more intelligent than you are, I want to be richer than you are, I want to have a bigger house than you have, I want to travel to more countries than you have traveled. Now, that feeling, I and you, is the source of conflict in the world. All the conflicts which you see, which arise whether between individuals, whether two societies, between two countries, within the different segments of the society, all these arise because of this knowledge that we do not see unity, but we see them in separation, entities which are different. If we see those entities in different way, then we remain attached to some entities and we become averse to certain entities. A person belonging to Congress will have hatred for other parties. A person belonging to BJP will have hatred for Congress. Now that is a normal process. Now this is when I and you comes into play. That Rajas Gyan is the foundation of that. So Rajas Gyan gives us the feeling of separate entities, separation. All entities are different and I am different and I should be superior than the rest. I am more knowledgeable. I should be richer. I should have more prestige in the society. I should enjoy more power. Now, those kind of things give rise to conflict. This gives rise to hatred. This gives rise to jealousy. This gives rise to exploitation. This gives rise to wars. Whatever conflict in any form you see, each arising because of these feelings. When the feelings of separate entities are seen separately, not in a uniform way, not on the same foundation, but in different, forms. Now, if we consider that, then we are driven by Rajasic knowledge. We are not driven by Sattvic knowledge. And obviously, if we are driven by Rajasic knowledge, we will end up in conflict with somebody else in one way or the other. So that is what we must understand. That if we want to avoid any conflict in life, we have to go by verse 20, not 21. 20 is the one which is actually the sattvic knowledge, the true knowledge. The Rasic knowledge actually divides us. It's the source of division, it's source of conflict, it's source of hatred, it is the source of jealousy, all that happens. Now, verse number 22. What is tamasic? Now, this is, we have seen the sattvic, we have seen the rasic. Now, what is tamasic? परंतु जो ज्ञान एक कार्य रूप शरीर में ही संपूर्ण के सदृश्य आसक्त है, तथा जो बिना युक्ति वाला तात्विक अर्थ से रहित और तुच्छ है, वह तामस कहा गया है. Now, this is a very, different, or I would say, strange looking definition of tamasic knowledge. Sattvic and Rasic are very clear to us. Now, Tamasic. Tamasic, the first foundation of Tamasic Gyan is that body is everything. You are not even concerned with consciousness. You are not even concerned with all pervading foundation of this universe, which is consciousness, which is Paramatma, which is Atma, which is the unifying force. You are not concerned with that. You are not concerned with others also. In the Rasik, you see others differently. Everybody is a separate entity. And therefore there is a conflict between you and me. You and me arises there. But here, you are not bothered about the rest of the world. You are bothered only your own self. Your own body is supreme. That body is the entity which drives you. That you looking for bodily comfort, that I should be comfortable, I should have a big house, I should have wealth, I should do this. Everything is actually centered around your body, not even your own self, around your body. So we beautify our body, we buy, big houses to make your body, more prestigious in the society. That yeah, this Gauri Shankar Gupta should be recognized. This body of Gauri Shankar Gupta should be recognized. So everything is centered around that body. So we become what? Koop Mandoop. Like we say in that एक चूहे को हल्दी की गांठ मिल गई तो वो पंसारी बन गया. So it is something like that we get one particular entity, we revolve around that entity, and we feel this is knowledge. I'm the most knowledgeable person. That becomes your feeling. And that partial knowledge, because this is knowledge of one particular aspect of trillions of aspects in this universe, you get knowledge of one aspect and you believe that this is the knowledge. Like you must have heard that story of the elephant, the four blind men defining an elephant. Somebody goes and touches the feet and he says the elephant is like a pillar. Somebody goes and touches his, his nose or his that big trunk, and he says it's like a, huge pipe. Somebody goes and touches the ears and he says it's like a big fan. So everybody concentrating only one small little aspect of the whole and defining it, then the knowledge is not correct, first of all. Secondly, you get completely a wrong impression of the reality. So, wrong impression of the reality gives you absolutely false knowledge. So, there are two things here. One is that your concentration is on your own body. Secondly, your knowledge based on a few things or only one thing which is totally partial, and therefore there is no truth or at all in the knowledge you have gained. And that is why the Lord Krishna has mentioning here that तात्विक अर्थ से रहित और तुच्छ है, because you are confining the whole universe and entity to one single thing, and that's the whole universe for you, and therefore your knowledge foundation itself is wrong. Therefore you cannot reach the correct knowledge. So this kind of knowledge, which is based on either the supremacy of the body or the supremacy of one particular aspect to which you are attached, then that knowledge is totally tamasic. It has nothing to do with the reality of life. And that knowledge which naturally, will lead you to a totally wrong direction. So now these three verses, 20, 21, and 22, I find these verses the most interesting and most, I would say, source of great knowledge, great foundation of knowledge. If we can understand these three, then we can purify our knowledge system and acquire a different base to understand this world. If we can understand that whole universe is one single entity like an ocean where different waves arise, this is, it's like all the different entities arise in your dream and they dissolve back into the same consciousness. Similarly, everything arises from the same consciousness and dissolve back into that consciousness. That consciousness is the foundation of everything. If we have that as foundation of our knowledge, then our life would be totally different. Our life would be what you call mrityu se amrit. It would be amrit. This life will be immortal. This life will be completely liberated because we will believe that we are part of that immortal entity and we can never be demolished. The bodies will come and go like the waves come and go in the ocean. So this is what is the first verse. Second verse, which we most of the people believe, most of the people, 99.9% people come into the category of 21 and 22. Now, 21, we all believe that they're all different entities and those are different from me. So, the difference of me and you, I and you, that difference arises and that leads to conflict. When there's I and you, then obviously I want to be superior to you. I want to have a bigger house. I want to have more wealth. I want to have, more beautiful partner. Then I want to have more fame in the society. I want to have more power. So there's a conflict. This gives rise to jealousy, hatred, conflict, wars. All those things arise from this feeling of separateness, that every entity is separate and I am separate, and therefore I should be superior to the rest. So this is the source of all the conflicts in the verse, in the universe. Then the verse number 22, this verse number 22, actually, the tamasic knowledge does not cause so much, conflict in the society, but it leads you into the darkness, total darkness, because you are totally inundated in your body. Body is supreme for you, and whatever knowledge you have, that is small knowledge, and you believe that is the, truth, then you are actually inundated into that false knowledge. And therefore, in this verse, in fact, the word Gyan doesn't even appear in verse number 22. In verse number 21, it appears Tat Jnanam. Verse number 20, it appears Tat Jnanam. But here it doesn't appear. It says Tat Tamas. So this is the difference. So this is what we have to understand. If we can understand these three verses, I think our task is done. Our Bhagavad Gita's lessons would be fructified in our life. So, Gyata, Gyan, and Ge, it's very important. This verse number 18. This is the process. That is, what is Gyan? When it gets into you and dissolve into you, then you become Gyata. That is one part. That is Karm ki Prerna, Gyata, Gyan, Ge. And Sangrah, Karta, Karan, and Kriya, that's also very important. That you use the instrument, your body instrument, these are Karmendriya and Gyanendriya you use, and you are the doer, and then you perform an act. So then you do that way, then you are accumulating karma. So this is what karma ka sangrah. Then you are leading to a seed which will give you the results, outcome, good or bad, of the life. And then these three verses, they give you the foundation of knowledge. So let us work to understand the verse 20, 21, and 22 correctly. Let us meditate on these verses in our spare time, and how we can develop sattvic knowledge so that our life is led to, the right path. Because sattvic knowledge alone can lead you to the right path. If you don't have sattvic knowledge, if you are driven by rasic knowledge, you can never reach the right path. So this is the foundation of our path. First, we must have that sattvic knowledge, and then we should move accordingly. Then our path will be correct path. We will reach the right destination. But if you are taking the verse number 21, the path that everybody is separate entities, then you cannot reach that, the mission of nirvana, the mission of liberation, because this is not the path which will lead you there. And of course, that verse 22 will definitely not lead you there. It will be a verse which will keep you totally in darkness for whole of your life. So I think if we can understand these three, we will, or the whole purpose of becoming spiritual in life will be achieved. This is these three verses, because right knowledge will lead us to the right karma. That is why Lord Krishna is emphasizing on Gyan here. That ज्ञान सही होगा तो आप कर्म सही करेंगे, अगर ज्ञान सही नहीं होगा तो कर्म कैसे करेंगे? अगर गलत फाउंडेशन पे आप चलेंगे, गलत, आपने कोई ट्रेन ली और आपको जाना है जैसलमेर, आपने ट्रेन ले ली अहमदाबाद की, तो आप जैसलमेर नहीं पहुंच सकते. दैट इज नॉट पॉसिबल. सो इफ यू वांट टू रीच जैसलमेर, देन यू हैव टू टेक द राइट ट्रेन टू जैसलमेर, नॉट टू अहमदाबाद. So similarly, if you want to reach the spiritual life, if you want to achieve nirvana and moksha, if you want to be liberated completely, then we have to take the path of verse 20. And that knowledge will lead us to the correct destination. Thank you.